Wait for the recording to start. Right, the recording has started. So, good morning, everybody. Welcome back and well done for getting through your exams. Could you just open the door to let the latecomers in? The purpose of this meeting is because, as you know, I hope you know, if you want to apply for an early entry course, so let's just absolutely clarify what that is. An early entry course means you want to apply for any subject at the University of Oxford or the University of Cambridge, or you want to apply to any university to study medicine, dentistry, or veterinary medicine. If you're not part of any of those categories, this meeting is irrelevant for you. You're welcome to stay if you're interested, but if not, you may wish to go and enjoy break. So if you want to put in an early entry application, the deadline for you will be the middle of October. Everybody else's deadline for their university application is not until January. We do have an earlier internal deadline, but what that means is in September, when you return, things are very rushed and they can feel panicky. And so we use these 2 weeks to get a lot of your application started and to set you off so that you can work hard on it over the summer so that you don't have a rush, because there's nothing worse than coming back into year 13, starting your year 13 A2 courses and trying to panic about your application. Okay, so there are two kind of pathways to talk about. There's the medicine, dentistry, veterinary medicine pathway and the Oxford Cambridge pathway, but there's a lot of overlap. So the first thing to focus on is all of you will need to write a personal statement and a very, very compelling UCAS application. Okay, so Zaher, who is one of our ex-students, is going to come in and do a specific talk to you about the early entry personal statement. And that is scheduled after school a week today, so part of the careers conference. Okay, he is then going to have one-to-ones with all of the Oxbridge candidates. I'll talk to you about the medicine candidates in a minute. He's going to have one-to-ones with all of the Oxbridge candidates next Tuesday, again part of the careers conference. You'll only get sort of 15-20 minutes each because there's a lot of you. And what you will need to do between now and then is you will need to start bullet pointing what you will be including in your personal statement. He will be helping you start to put that together in terms of actual prose, and then you will use that Tuesday of the careers conference to write your first draft. So for everybody in this room, the expectation is that by the end of that Tuesday, you really need a first draft, and that we would look to have your second draft, which will be more complete, by the first day back in September. Okay, so you need to be further ahead than all of your peers. Okay, so your focus for the next 2 weeks really is getting your personal statement together. Now, the personal statement is split into 3 questions. We will go through this in the careers conference, but I'm just going to read them out to you so that you can start thinking about them. I will send this recording out to everybody so that you can listen back if you forget them. Right, so the 3 questions are: the first question, why do you want to study this course or subject? The second question, how have your qualifications and studies helped you to prepare for this course and subject? And thirdly, what else have you done to prepare outside of education, and why are these experiences useful? Okay, so with any of your applications, the brutal thing is the nice stuff, the fluffy stuff, don't care, get rid of it. What matters is your subject. What matters is demonstrating that you are at the top of your field. What matters is demonstrating that you are highly academic, you are highly resilient, you've gone above and beyond your subject. That could be with relevant work experience. Do not just say, I've done work experience. Talk about what you learned. How have you applied that? How has it helped you pull together your wider knowledge within your subject? That could be background reading you've done. That could be extracurricular activities that directly relate to your subject, such as Olympiads. If you're doing maths, it could relate to, say, the STEP classes that Mr. Walter's done. If you're doing computer science, it could relate to the I can't remember what it's called, but you did the computer science competition. I think Mr. Bridgman does it every year, you know the one I'm talking about. If you apply for the sciences, that could be the Olympiads. If you apply for an arts course, that will be things like essay competitions that you've all done, things like that. Medicine, dentistry, veterinary medicine, that could be the virtual work experience, that could be any of the competitions that the universities run, so on and so forth. So you need to focus 100% on the academic stuff. You can include one sentence in the last sentence of your personal statement if you want that says, I also run, I'm on the head student team and I like to volunteer for charity, but that is where all of that stuff fits. Okay, So 99.5% of your personal statement must be academic. That one sentence is to accommodate the other 4 universities you're going to apply for, or in the case of medicine, dentistry and veterinary medicine, the other 1 university you apply for. But Oxford and Cambridge particularly don't care about any of that stuff, and you are wasting characters by putting it in. So those 3 questions. So why do you want to study this course or subject? You're absolutely not going to say, I want to study this course or subject because I want to earn lots of money, or because someone told me it was a good idea. You need an academic reason. So talk about what inspires you, what part of the subject is the most exciting thing, how are you going to change the world, how are you going to be an academic, and we'll go through some examples of those with Zaher, but you need to start thinking in advance of that meeting. Qualifications and studies, that's stuff in school. So talk about your academic experiences within school. And then question 3 is your academic experiences outside of school. Between now and when you meet Zaher, just bullet points, and then you'll have the last week of term to put it into prose. Okay? Does that make approximate sense? So between now and next Monday, when you all meet Zaher, and I want all of you to attend that. So if you've got something else on, please can you just clear your schedule? Because unfortunately, when I'm getting guests in, I can't be super flexible with when they're available. And actually, I'd say dentistry medicine and veterinary medicine, you may as well attend that because your personal statement is very similar, so you may as well attend that. But that meeting after school next Monday, you need to bring with you bullet points for the 3 questions. Zaher will start talking to you about how to put it into prose, and then your one-to-one on the Tuesday, he'll help you actually do that. Okay? So that's your personal statement. Those of you applying for medicine, dentistry and veterinary medicine, I'm currently working with Tarek Otri, who's another ex-student, to come and pin down a similar date for you, but that date is not finally confirmed, so it's in the pipeline. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is mock interviews. So medicine, I can't remember whether it's the Monday or Tuesday, I have booked and paid somebody to come and do a full day of mock interviews. That's for medicine, dentistry and veterinary medicine. So that'll be next week. You all have a mock interview. The plan is you all have a mock interview at some point next week. Oxbridge people, I'm about 60% of the way through the list organising them, but they'll all be in place by next week. You might get quite short notice just because I'm calling upon favours from friends that I went to university with, for example. And Mr. Bedford, who also went to Oxford, is calling upon favours. So, for example, all the maths ones are fixed, I think all the engineering ones are fixed. I'm negotiating on computer science at the moment, so on and so forth. But they will all take place next week. You will all have a mock interview next week. That will be on Microsoft Teams. It will be recorded. The expectation is you will be rubbish at this point. That's fine. That's because you've never done that style of interview before. They are pretty scary. There won't be any nice softeners. There won't be any, so why do you want to study this subject? It will be straight in with, if you're studying maths, it will be, here's a really difficult maths question that you won't be able to answer. Go. Tell me your thoughts. That is what your interview will look like. So the expectation is next week you'll be rubbish, and that's fine. But then what you'll do is you will go away, you will all get feedback. You will go away over the summer, you will take that recording, you will listen to it, you will improve. We'll do another one in September. And then for those of you who get an interview, we'll do a third one like the week before your final interview to make sure you're actually prepared, because you won't all get interviews, being realistic. The medicine ones, they are very expensive. So if your mock exams, I'm just going to be honest, if your mock exams do not mean that you are in a good position to apply for medicine, I may take you off that list just because I have to pay a certain amount per person. And if it's very obvious that you're not going to be accepted because your predicted grades are going to be CCD, for example, then I can't justify the cost of paying for you to have a mock interview. I'm afraid that's not something that's up for discussion. I have a limited budget and I have to prioritise it. Anybody in this room whose predicted grades are viable will get a mock interview and get all of this support. Okay, so that's mock interviews. In terms of prep, there are loads of practice questions online. Have a look at those, start bullet pointing what you would answer. Particularly for the mathsy, sciencey ones, they are very, very brutal and they'll just go straight in. Remember, the idea is you shouldn't be able to answer the questions. It's unlikely that you will be able to get to a final answer. What they want to know is your thought process. Absolutely don't try and guess what they're thinking. Just go in and show them who you are as a person. Okay? Thirdly, admissions tests. So most of you will have to do an admissions test. If it is medicine or dentistry, that is the UK CAT. And if it's Oxford or Cambridge, then there's an assortment of different admissions tests. Veterinary, you don't do one now, you do it later on. For medicine and dentistry, the UK CAT is the thing. Getting yourself in the top set of the top decile. They decide it's maybe usually about the top 2 deciles. Sometimes it's the top 3, depending on the year and how many people they want to apply. But basically, where you are in the ranking is the most important thing in terms of your success. So UKCAT, you should have all booked it by now, I hope. Over the summer holiday, you absolutely must prep for it. There was a session in the Medical Society to support you to do that a few weeks ago, so hopefully you know what to do, but there's loads of stuff online. Admissions tests for Oxford and Cambridge are very variable by subject, so I can't really give you a guideline. But again, there's loads of stuff available online, and it is super important. It is super important. So over the summer, carve out a good amount of time to be preparing for that if this is a big priority for you. Finally, two more things. If you do a course where you have to send off any sort of portfolio, I don't think, for example, there's anyone applying for architecture, but architecture, you have to send off a portfolio, for example. They ask for that the day after your application. So people often fall into the error of thinking, oh, I'll do my application, then I'll start putting together my portfolio. You can't do that. That needs to be ready to go. And finally, it is a huge amount of luck, and it is an incredibly brutal process. And the reality is loads of you won't be successful, not because you're not all amazing, but just because that's how it is. Putting in a credible application is a good amount of work. You do need to be really up in your field. You do need to have done a ton of relevant background reading. You do need to have done a ton of extracurricular activities. I said all of this in my talk to parents in September, so hopefully this shouldn't be a surprise. I know loads of you have worked to build up your portfolio of relevant experience. If you haven't, crack on over the summer. But ultimately, what really matters is how clever you are. And that's not just grades. Like, most people who apply will have 3 A stars predicted. That's the baseline. What matters really is your academic flair sitting above that, because actually at A level, a lot of people can get very high marks if they learn the processes. It's about how good your brain is beyond the processes. And it's really about your deep thinking skills. So I would say to you now that you're signing up for a really tough journey. I think it's an awesome journey. Going to Oxford was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, but it is also, this application process is not for the faint-hearted. The experience when you're there is not for the faint-hearted. Like, you're not going to be having the sort of party university lifestyle that other people have. And so you've got to be really sure it's something you want to go for. And if you don't get in, there's absolutely no shame in that as well. Okay, so I will take you all the way through to your applications. Obviously, I'm going on maternity leave at October half term, as I explained in the assembly this morning. Some of your interviews will be after that. So depending on your situation, I will hand that over one-to-one when we get nearer the time. Okay, are there any questions about anything I've said? Yes, Chan.
So for PB, I know there's like 3 interviews, I think, one for philosophy, one for econ.
I'm unlikely to be able to get 3 people to come and do your interviews, but what I will do is get somebody who understands PP so they can cover some of each specialism. Okay, I think there's 3 of you going for PP in here. Any other questions? Okay, in which case, have a nice afternoon.